Good afternoon. Darts. So, yeah, normally you see me throwing at a board this time. So, yeah, thanks for watching. For those of you that watched all my darts videos so far, essentially, if you haven't seen these before, my name's Harry, and I'm setting myself a goal. See if I could turn professional within 18 months. I used to play a lot of darts when I was younger. I was sponsored by Unicorn that used to make all the dartboards, and they sponsored players like Phil Taylor, Gary Anderson, Rain van Barneveld, Adrian Lewis, John Lowe, just multiple world champions essentially, and I was part of that team as this generation 180, like the up and coming darts players. So why am I sitting my computer today? Why am I not throwing in the board at the moment? We're going to do something slightly different today because I've played a little bit better lately. If anyone's seen my two live videos, the form has definitely picked up. However, there's been a slight problem with it. I'm not really doing anything, am I? Throwing in my room, yeah, progression. I'm not throwing as many bad darts. I'm hitting some better scores, but not playing any competition. I haven't got the time to play in tournaments, working weekends. So where do I really go for it? I haven't got a practice partner either. Where am I going to get to that next level if I haven't got that time commitment? So what I wanted to do today is I wanted to ask ChatGPT or AI, essentially, what is the cost of darts? This used to be a working man's sport. You sort of play in the pubs Friday night after a long week at work, and it was just sport for the sort of common man essentially. And it's going away from that, I think. I think it's getting quite expensive. So I want to ask 10 questions to ChatGPT today, basically to see the level I need to be at, and is it really financially viable with time commitments and just general costs of darts now. So yeah, what we'll do, we'll ask the 10 questions. I have no idea what they're going to say, to be honest with you. But yeah, we'll have to decide then if it's still viable for me to continue this dream of turning professional in 18 months. Let's get on with the first question. Okay, so what I've said to them basically is I'm going to ask you 10 darts related questions. I want you to give me the most reliable and honest answers. They said go ahead with your 10 darts questions. I'll give you the most accurate, reliable, and honest answers possible. So yeah, let's go for it. Okay, my first question is how much would it cost for a standard set of darts and a Windmill Blade 6 dartboard?
Sure. Generally speaking, a starter set of darts can range anywhere from about $18 to $30, depending on the quality and brand. As for the Windmill Blade 6 dartboard, it's usually in the ballpark of around $100 to $150. So altogether, you'd be looking at roughly 115 to 180 for the set.
So I'm currently using a set of darts that's about £30 when I bought them. Now darts have got very expensive though. When I used to essentially buy darts, particularly like decent tungsten 90%, it used to be about £30. They are rocketing up in price. So you can get what I love with darts though, it doesn't have to be the best quality darts to make you the best player. It really doesn't. You don't have to go and buy Loot Littler darts to turn into Loot Littler. You could buy just a standard set that you like and they might work perfectly for you around £20, £30. So that's the first thing I want to say. I'm not too worried about that. Dartboards, though, they are getting expensive. So I'm currently using the Unicorn Eclipse Pro. And when I used to have those ones, was when they were the TV dartboards, the tournament dartboards with the PDC, they were about £30. We are talking 60 to 80 at least now for the current Windmill Blade 6 board. It's getting expensive for those. So yeah, interesting. You're talking about £150 just before you've even started. And I'm going to need a new board at some point as well. So interesting. That's quite expensive. Let's see how much the sort of top 64 players earn anyway. Okay, so you need to be in the top 64 to keep your tour card in the PDC. How much money does the world number 64 earn every 2 years?
In the PDC, the earnings of the player ranked 64th can vary quite a bit depending on their performance in different tournaments over the 2 year period. Generally, it could range from tens of thousands to possibly even over £100,000, depending on how well they do. But without exact data, it's tough to give a precise number.
Who's the current world number 64 and what does he earn?
As of October 10th, 2025, Stephen Burton holds the 64th spot in the PDC Order of Merit, and he has earned approximately £85,000.
Thank you. Doesn't sound too bad, does it, to be honest with you? Sort of £85,000 for 2 years, but then you've got to factor in everything else, which we will sort of find out in a minute. You've got to consider the amount. I mean, he'll have a sponsor probably, which will probably cover a lot of the costs of some of his travel, some of his other expenses, maybe his darts equipment and stuff will all be covered, but he's going to have to pay for some of that himself. And any earnings, obviously, taxed and stuff on that. So 40 odd grand a year, but it's all those extra additional costs. going to be interesting. Is that enough? Do you then need to do another job? And then how does that affect your time on the tour? Can you afford to take those times off? So let's ask them. Let's ask ChatGPT now how much that sort of costs roughly a year for travel and transport. On the PDC tour, how much does it cost in general to travel and transport to all the events?
Yeah, the travel and transportation costs for PDC Tour players can definitely add up. On average, players can spend anywhere from a few thousand to even tens of thousands of pounds per year. This includes flights, accommodations, transport, and even food expenses. Of course, it really depends on how many events they enter and where they're traveling to.
Now, first of all, I've got to give a lot of credit to the players that travel and sacrifice a lot. Players like Damon Hettu have had to move from Australia, and some of the German players and other players that are playing in Europe, they have to come to the UK a lot. Darts is becoming more global, and now a lot of the UK players are having to travel abroad, particularly the top ones for these World Series events. And there's more and more, events abroad now. They're going to Slovakia, they're going to Saudi Arabia, a lot more. This is going to add up. This is really going to add up. And again, you've got to factor all these in before you go to a Q school. And we're going to find out in a minute how much it costs for Q school and the challenge tour and all those things. So yeah, it's starting to look expensive. I don't think I could afford this. So you have to take a gamble with this. You have to really believe in yourself. Do I believe in myself enough at the minute? I'm not sure. Anyway, let's ask next. How much does it cost to enter the PDC Q school, and how much does it cost to play in the challenge tour?
Enter the PDC qualifying school, it costs about £475 per player, which includes the DRA sanction fee. Meanwhile, for the Challenge Tour, each event costs about £55 to enter.
And how many challenge tour events are there a year?
Typically, the PDC Challenge Tour consists of about 24 events each year.
So you're talking over £1,000 for entry a year. Thank you. Yeah, you're talking over £1,000 just to enter them all every year. They're not all in England either. Some go to Germany, I believe, as well. So these people who enter the challenge tour tend to have to work as well, and this is just a supplement their income, and they're not getting their travel costs covered a lot of the time. So it's a big risk. You really have to risk a lot, and time away from the family. Obviously, kids at school. You can't just go away. This isn't a holiday, and this is the thing that a lot of the darts players talk about. Not easy. It sounds like the sort of dream ticket, but there's another side to it. It's a job first and foremost. So interesting. Right, let's get on to the next question. If I was a full-time PDC professional, how many tournaments would I be able to play in per year?
As a full time PDC professional, you typically have access to all the major PDC events, which includes the World Championship, the Premier League, the Players' Championship events, the European Tour events, and the World Series events. Altogether, that can easily total around 30 to 40 tournaments in a year, depending on your qualification and performance. Plus, you can also participate in some additional invitational events throughout the year.
So 30 to 40 events a year. So you're talking sort of, 52 weeks a year, over half a year dedicated to that. But you've got to remember as well, a lot of these players that have these sponsorships also have to play in exhibitions. They have to go to different parts of the country, across the world, and that's obviously helping supplement their income. But that's more time away on the road, away from family. So you're essentially living out of suitcases a lot of the time. And again, doesn't sound a lot. Let's be honest, we all work, probably as much as that in terms of the amount of days, but if the travel and stuff, you lose an extra couple of days. Thankfully, I'm lucky. I can just come home the same day and I'm back with family. So, I haven't really thought this through enough, have I? I don't know if I can turn professional just yet. So, let's see what happens with the rest of the questions I've got anyway. In your opinion, and based on any information you can find, how much practice do I need to do a day at darts in order to become a professional?
That's a great question. It really varies depending on the individual and their starting skill level, but generally, aspiring professional dart players often practice anywhere from 3 to 6 hours a day. This usually includes focused practice on different aspects like doubles, finishing, and scoring consistency. And of course, many also include match practice and mental training. Ultimately, consistency and quality of practice are key.
Yeah, practice and the amount of hours you practice and when you practice, I think it's a really important thing. I think you can't beat match practice, first of all. Luke Littler, I don't think practices very much. And I think you've got to remember there's this statistic, there's this number that we've heard about before 10,000 hours to master a sport. darts is a mental game, and the more you play doesn't necessarily mean the better you get. I know Connor Scott's one of the biggest practices in the world. He dedicated like a morning to end shift. That's not going to work for everyone. Some people will lose focus, lose interest, and yeah, I think you've got to work out what's best for yourself. 3 to 6 hours, that's okay. But again, if you had a long day working, you're going to be tired after work or trying to do it before. When let's be honest, most tournaments aren't played till the afternoon. So again, interesting. I personally find the more I play, the better I get, but I do also switch off. And I think it's very important to get match practice. I don't think you can beat the match practice. But yeah, let's see what sort of averages they recommend in order to turn a professional. Okay, couple more questions. If I was to turn professional, what would the rough average I would need to get out a Q score? What would my 3 dart average need to be?
That's a really interesting question. Generally, to stand out at Q School and earn a tour card, players often aim for a 3 dart average of around 85 to 90 in their matches. That kind of consistency shows a high level of skill and reliability. Of course, the higher the average, the better your chances, but aiming for that range is a good
I'm about
benchmark.
69. Currently in practice without pressure and just sort of throwing without any, waiting for an opponent. I'm averaging about 69 to 71. That's a lot to make out. That sound a lot, 14 points in dust, but it's a heck of a lot. It's a heck of a lot. So yeah, essentially I'm nowhere near. I'm nowhere near, and until I play in a game, my average will probably drop. So with that extra pressure, with a different feel on a different hockey, obviously the PDC boards and the sort of development tour boards and all those things have been perfectly marked out. But when you play in pubs, county games, they're not always the case. So yeah, nowhere near. Even though I've gone from sort of a 47, 48 when I started to about 68, 71, so back to more what I was expecting. Nowhere near still. Got to make a big, big jump, and that's got to be consistent as well. You've got to get it right consistently, not just every so often. Say you've got an injury playing darts and you have to take time away from the sport. Are you covered financially by any insurance by the PDC or the PDPA? Is there anything that can help save your ranking? Or if you get injured, do you just drop down the rankings?
In general, the PDC and the PDPA don't offer comprehensive injury insurance that would directly cover lost earnings or protect your ranking if
That's
you
not
have
bad,
to
is it?
take time off. Um, Typically, players are responsible for their own insurance, like personal accident or income protection insurance, to safeguard themselves financially. As for rankings, if you get injured and can't compete, unfortunately, you do risk dropping down the rankings. The
Michael
PDC
Smith.
does have some provisions like medical exemptions in certain circumstances, but it's not as straightforward as having a dedicated injury policy. So a lot of players do rely on their own safety nets and personal planning.
Now, I'll be honest, this is something that I hope changes in darts. We're seeing more injuries in darts at the moment. That's why I wanted to mention it. These players are dropping down the rankings. Michael Smith, for example, with his issues with his wrist. And we've seen other players that have had similar sort of type injuries. Divan Boda, Aspinall. There's no protection for them. And a lot of them are not, I hate to say it with darts players, but a lot of them don't think these things through. They just kind of plough on, think everything's going to be okay until it's not. And of course, you've got to remember, these players who are working second jobs tend to be doing more manual type jobs. So Cameron Menzies was a plumber, I believe. Johnny Clayton did carpentry, and Zeus was a firefighter. There's a very high chance you could do your back in doing a lot of these things. Saw Stephen Bunting get injured the other day at the Grand Prix with a bad back. It's very common, it's very, very common, and I think it's going to be a bigger issue in darts, whether that's just caused by darts or external sort of roles that you're doing. So, something I like, running, keeping active, keeping fit. I do quite a lot of heavy lifting in my work. I'd have to consider that. And there's no guarantee that I'm going to have a good back. If anyone's seen my action, my back's very tilted where I have tight calves and tight hamstrings. So, all things I've got to consider. That, you're not covered. You're not covered, and you will be more covered in certain professions. So, yeah, darts is falling a little bit behind with that. And my final question, based on any research and knowledge, what is the average length of a professional darts player's career?
The length of a professional darts player's career can really vary depending on the individual. On average, many players have careers that last anywhere from about 10 to 20 years at the top level. Some players, like Phil Taylor, had careers that span several
The
decades, while
greatest.
others might have shorter careers due to injuries or other factors. It's definitely a sport where players can remain competitive well into their 40s and even 50s.
So yeah, I'd say that's a bit of a positive now. Look, we shouldn't be saying that the more darts and the cost of the darts going up is a bad thing. The sport's growing, and that's a great thing. There's more money. You don't have to be in the game that long. Luke Littler could probably play a few more years, and he's set for life. He's 18 years old. That's madness. Phil Taylor had to play for 30 years. He had to earn those checks. He didn't have those extra avenues through sponsorships. Maybe those giant sponsorships, and the sport didn't. And it's getting more respect. So let's not say it's a bad thing that there's more events, there's more tournaments, there's more commitments. The costs are going to go up with that, but that's the prize money going up as well. You can have £1 million world champion this year. And look, if you can dedicate 10, 20 years of your life to that, you've got the rest of it then to hopefully focus on other avenues. A lot of players have dropped off and they haven't got anything to fall back on. So they're now planning darts, they're making it bigger and it's growing, and that can't be a bad thing. But you have to consider the sacrifice now, the risks that you are taking if you want to be a professional are getting greater. So it's a bit of an eye opener for me. I'm going to continue the practice for a little bit longer though, and let's see if I can get my average up. We'll do a bit more of a game against the computer again next week and just see if I can reach those averages. But yeah, some really interesting answers. I hope that's given you some answers as well, and sort of anyone is interested in playing darts a little bit more regularly. Yeah, maybe go and just give it a try in the pub, and obviously still quite cheap in that sort of sense. So start low, work your way up, and yeah, just see how much it is. And the best thing about darts, age is no barrier. You can do this at any age, and doing it at the right time for you is the key. But yeah, thank you very much for watching today. I hope though said, hope you enjoyed this one. There'll definitely be some more practice though again over the next week or two. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.